NVC is my life right now. But what is NVC? Like, how can I describe it to someone who has never heard of it before? I can say that when I was a teenager, I was in a lot of pain about life in general, having really no idea what it is that would fill that hole in me. You could say I was searching for the meaning of life, or what could make life feel meaningful, as opposed to hollow and empty. And the kind of very atheistic, materialistic idea of what is worth living for didn't really seem to satisfy me. I could say philosophically, well, the meaning of life is to make as many people as happy as possible. The greater happiness, the more we've succeeded, right? But what makes us happy? And I was starting to get an idea that it wasn't everything that we've been brought up to think makes us happy, but still, I assumed that increasing the amount of pleasure in the world would be approximately what we're going for. Later on, I realized gradually, that even if you have a higher vision of happiness, aiming for happiness on its own doesn't get you to a feeling of this is what was missing. I found it now. And NVC taught me a new way of interacting with meaning, with happiness, with what I'm looking for. NVC talks about feelings, and it talks about the needs that are behind those feelings. And through studying NVC, we get more and more acquainted with both our feelings and our human needs. And one thing that was a revelation to me was that each feeling that we have is pointing to a need. Sometimes a fulfilled need, then we feel some variation of happy, and sometimes to an unfulfilled need, and then we feel some variation of unhappy, angry, sad, frustrated. So, every time we have a feeling, we can investigate that, perhaps just with our own conscious awareness, or in a pair, in a couple work, and always at the root of the feeling we discover a need, a beautiful need. And I say beautiful because almost the need has its own sensation to it. It's not quite an emotion, but it's an aliveness that you experience. So, say, I'm feeling lonely. I can go into that feeling of loneliness, and for the sake of the example, let's say I'm doing it on my own. And I bring in some loving awareness. And that part's not too different from maybe Buddhism or the power of now, which is what I was into before NVC. But after the feeling has had a bit of time to be experienced, I go a little deeper and I look for what the need is under the feeling. And I realize I'm lonely because I'm so longing to be on the same wavelength as someone. And then I know that it's not quite the same as just being around people. I need to find the right situations to fulfill this need. I just look at that feeling of wanting to be in the same wavelength as someone. And there's a sweetness to it. And my loneliness softens. It stops being so harsh and difficult to hold. Maybe it becomes a sweet sadness. A sadness that's longing, that is so connected with the longing behind it, that's almost enjoyable. Wow. I so long to be on the same wavelength as someone. In that moment, you're feeling it. Even almost the fulfillment of that need, when you're so peacefully present, it's almost like the quality of the longing is a fulfillment in itself. The upshot of this exercise is that you learn to get better at understanding what it is that makes you happy or brings that sense of I'm on the right track, I'm not suffering. And you learn to communicate that better, and you learn to organize your life in such a way that you can fulfill this better, these needs better. And I discovered that the meaning of life is not to be happy, but to live in this place of connection to my beautiful needs, the energy of these needs, almost like the feeling experience of my longings. And to live fulfilling those needs. And life feels full and life feels meaningful when you're fulfilling needs. And yes, happiness comes. But happiness is never what you're aiming for per se. Happiness is a signal that it says, yeah, I'm on the right track. Things are going the way that my soul would like them to go. So, there you have it. Nothing more, nothing less than the entire meaning of all of life. Well, we have some more work to do. Let's not rest on our laurels. But yeah, that's a big thing that NVC has meant for me.